Shape Jamaica's future. By paying your hard 3% contribution, you're not just contributing, you're investing in people, in skills, in our economy. Your hard contribution trains working-age Jamaicans, aligns programs with workforce needs, and secures our future. That's not just contribution, it's transformation. Contribute to heart and to your future.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than
Titus Campbell, CVM, see it happen.
Welcome. Tonight, Jamaica remembers a cultural architect who helped shape our sound and our global identity. We also examine how the country is rebuilding and whether waste could become a resource rather than a liability. And later, as several high-profile trials continue, we break down what the law requires and what the public should be watching for. This is Lead Story. Today, we pause to honor a true titan of the Jamaican soundscape, Stephen Cat Coore, who passed away yesterday, January 18, 2026, at the age of 69. For those of you who are just meeting his music today, and for the fans who have hummed his melodies for decades, here's the story of a man who didn't just play reggae, he elevated it into a global art form. Now, Stephen Cat Williams was born into a family, Cat Coore was born into a family of high achievers on April 6, 1956. Stephen was the son of David Coore, Jamaica's former deputy prime minister and a co-drafter of the nation's constitution, and Rita Coore, an esteemed music tutor. This unique upbringing at the intersection of national leadership and classical discipline shaped the man he became. A prodigy by any measure, Coore was performing classical cello for Princess Anne at King's House by the age of 12. By 13, he had joined Inner Circle. And at 17, he co-founded Third World, a group that would redefine the global possibilities of Jamaican music. For more than 50 years, Coore served as Third World's musical director, guiding the band through 10 Grammy nominations and an international catalog that included global hits such as Now That We Found Love, Now That We Found Love, and 96 Degrees in the Shade. Real hot. Under his stewardship, reggae expanded, absorbing jazz, R&B, soul, funk, and classical sensibilities without ever losing its Jamaican core. Following news of his passing, tributes poured in from across Jamaica and the wider musical world. First, a tribute from Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness, describing Coore as a towering figure and a cultural ambassador in the truest sense. crediting his work with helping to define Jamaica's global musical identity. Culture Minister Olivia Grange hailed him as the reggae ambassador, calling his death a tremendous national loss. International recording artist Sean Paul remembered Coore as a mentor who gave him his first opportunity in a recording studio, describing him as a master of both craft and character. Reggae icon Burning Spear wrote simply, "I have no words. This really hurts. Rest in peace, my brother." And British reggae pioneer Steel Pulse recalled decades of shared stages and festivals, calling his passing a bitter pill to swallow. Stephen Cat Coore is survived by his wife Lisa and his children, Shia, a Grammy-winning producer and bassist, Kana, Stephen, and Ashley. He leaves behind a legacy often described as reggae fusion, music, sophisticated enough to sit alongside symphonic traditions, yet rooted deeply in Caribbean rhythm, resistance, and joy. More than that, he leaves a model of cultural stewardship, proof that Jamaican music could evolve without erasure and travel without dilution. As the world mourns, many fans return to the words he often shared from the stage and online. Words now that read like a farewell. "You know I love you," right? Stephen Cat Coore's life forces us to reflect not only on what he gave to Jamaica, but how we as a country honor our cultural giants. Joining me now to continue this conversation, our lecturer at the Institute of Caribbean Studies, Dr. Dennis Howard, a musicologist, and we are also expecting inside studios some other people to be able to speak with us as well. Dr. Howard, thank you so very much for joining us inside Lead Story. Dennis Howard, what was your reaction to the passing today of Cat Coore?
A really sad moment. Stephen was a friend. We have spent a lot of time together, especially in the 90s at IRE FM at Grove Recording Studio. And I've been a fan of Third World from I was a teenager when they weren't even a reggae band.
Dr. Dennis Howard,
Yeah.
we're having an issue hearing you clearly here in studio. Let's take a quick break here and collect everything, pull it together so that we're able to hear your heartfelt tributes about a man that has so just amazingly been an icon inside reggae and in other parts of music as well. We'll take a quick break and come back to you, Dr. Dennis Howard, as we remember Stephen Cat Coore.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than entertainment.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yeah.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
One step closer, I'm winning. Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jodi-Ann Coore.
Brought to you by VC's Electrical Sales. Quality products at affordable prices.
Tonight on Small Biz Big Dreams, we journey into the mind of Rudolph Shaba Montague, the man behind the fruit store in St. Elizabeth. This is Small Biz Big Dreams. For more than 20 years, Shaba's natural fruit store has been serving the people of Lacovia, offering nutritious, wholesome and delectable delights.
So we just draw the little plan and just come up and say, all right then, I go out and get me little jelly and get me little pine and get me little orange and start that thing. Benefit me a lot because it you know, put on my pot and, you know, benefit me a lot, man. Make me just calm, you know.
Shaba says it's the wide variety of offerings that keeps customers coming back, helping him maintain a loyal and expanding customer base.
I have coconut, I have pine, cane, coconut, peanut, orange. Yeah. So, and me have a little drink, so you know, just that. Yeah, man, and if you stop by, you have the cold jelly same way.
Beyond the variety, Shaba explains that cleanliness and presentation are key, creating a space that is both inviting and trustworthy for customers.
Just keep clean and just, you know, my food's always clean, you know, because, you know, see me have your food and get permit and everything. So, you know, clean, so people want clean food for eat and everything. So we just keep it clean. And you come, and you want to find Shaba, just come right at the tomb there. That's the Shaba. And then we got the crossroad.
We're now speaking with Dr. Dennis Howard, lecturer at the Institute of Caribbean Studies and a musicologist, as we reflect on the life and passing of not only Caribbean, but international icon, Stephen Cat Coore. Dr. Howard, before the break, you were talking about your reaction to the passing of Stephen Coore and what his music means.
The news this morning, as I consider Stephen a friend in terms of the music industry. We have spent a lot of time together. I remember when I was at IRI FM, the group came down to record one of their albums. I think it was Committed. We spent a lot of time together in the studio and hanging out, and they contributed a lot behind the scenes to the beginnings of IRI FM. So, and I've known Cat for many years. I was a fan first. I've been following Third World since they were basically a show band and never had any recordings, and I would see them at stage shows at the Caribou or the Regal Theatre, and they would be doing a variety of music, including funk and soul. That was the original group with Cornell Marshall on drums, Prilly on lead vocals, Cat on guitar, Ibo on keyboard, and Richie Daly on bass. Cat Coore is a major loss for the music industry internationally, because he was a well-renowned guitarist, a among the best in the business. And also, he was a child prodigy and a skillful cellist, and performed, as you mentioned before, dignitaries and all over the world. And he was a true reggae ambassador. And I am telling you, he will be sadly missed.
He will be sadly missed, and it's very, very clear that persons all around the world recognize Third World as a band, but also recognize Stephen Cat Coore. You spoke about him being a musical prodigy, but for many people, they're thinking of Third World as this sort of reggae fusion band. I remember seeing them live in Florida and just being amazed at the breadth and depth of music that they could pull, but also the kind of audience that they could pull as well. Where does Third World fit in our discussions about reggae, dancehall, other cultural forms, and then pulling in other forms of music as well?
Trailblazing. They were influenced by funk, soul. They were big fans of a group called Tower of Power with Lenny Williams. And so they fused skillfully. They were one of the groups that in the 70s made a link between uptown Jamaica and downtown. At one point, they were considered the uptown band, and I remember they did a project with 90 Oldness, and they recorded a song at Channel 1 called I Roots, Roots with Quality. But they turned a lot they did their version of a lot of songs like Dreamland. That was an amazing cover. And they also did Gamble and Huff's song, which was recorded first by the OJs, Now That We Found Love. And they turned it into an international dance classic. In fact, I remember in the 1990s or 80s, I think it was the 90s, there was a house sound club called the Paradise Garage down in the Village. And I remember one night being there in New York, and they played that song, the extended version of Now That We Found Love. And I'm not exaggerating. That was the hypest I saw the group or the dancers or the patrons after that song was played by the famous remixer Larry Levan. So Third World has carried the music to every corner of the earth. Africa, they did Lagos Drum in tribute to Nigeria, their Nigerian visit. They did Girl from Hiroshima because of their Japan visit. And they had all kinds of songs that span all genres. They were genre defined. And before even people was using that term. So they bridged the gap between the different Jamaicas, and they resonated with roots people. So they weren't considered an uptown band exclusively. But and Cat was at the forefront of that, as a musical director and as a brilliant guitarist. One remembers the solo that he did in House Call, which is the song between Shabba Ranks and Maxi Priest.
Things that make him not only an icon of Third World, but we're also thinking of him as an icon of music. Clyde McKenzie is on with us right now as well, cultural commentator. And I want to hear from him also, his perspective on what it means to have lost legend of music, Cat Coore. So, Clyde McKenzie, you've now witnessed and been with us as we've spoken about, as a nation, the loss of Jimmy Cliff, and now the loss only a few weeks later of Stephen Cat Coore. What is your response and reaction to now the news that he is no longer with us?
It's deeply personal for me, because Cat was somebody I really knew well, and we had a great relationship. He was a phenomenal human being. I like to joke that if Cat had not gone into the business of music, he could have been a good comedian, because he had a remarkable sense of humor.
True.
He was like Bunny Ruggs. They were great, and Dennis can tell you about that because he would have interacted with them on that level. I remember it could have been in 1990 into 1991. We had the privilege of interacting with them over an extended period in Ocherius because they were recording an album there at Grove Studio, the home of Irie FM. And that was really something because, you know, we got really close to them at the time. And, you know, I remember I had my own personal tragedies going into. And I remember one of the songs that gave me solace was Who Gave You? That beautiful tune from Third World. You know, they as Dennis says, the taste and the range of their musical offering is wide. It's eclectic. I mean, they covered everything. I mean, these were fantastic musicians. I mean, it's no joke about it. Cat is a man, as he would sometimes say, he's classically trained, you know, and it was no joke. His mother was one of the great figures in terms of mentoring classical musicians in this country, Orrit Roden and all of these people. And so she was able to lift him to a level as a prodigy because, I mean, he went to the Pablo Casal's the contest and distinguished himself as a cellist. You know, this was Cat Coore. I mean, he was no ordinary figure, and as Dennis spoke earlier, he was ranked among the greatest guitarists of all time by Rolling Stone. You know, so it's not. We're not talking about an ordinary figure here.
We're talking about clearly somebody that's extraordinary. That you're saying to us, Clyde McKenzie, helping us.
No. You couldn't help but love this guy because he had a larger than life personality. I mean, here he was from a patrician kind of background, you know, but he didn't have that bearing.
Well, that was because the uptownness that you heard Dennis Howard speaking about a moment ago, but not considered an uptown band by the time they move through the eras of their work. But let me just pull something from you, Clyde McKenzie, because this is something that we're watching right now. Stephen Coore received immense global recognition. You spoke about that Rolling Stone recognition, but some argue that he hasn't been recognized as much at home, not a lot of formal national honoring. Is that a policy failure or a cultural blind spot, you believe?
Well, let me tell you, I mean, I don't think we have really settled on a proper formula in terms of how we confer national honors. I mean, I'm just being straight up. And so you find that the thing is not as consistent as it should be. And so many times you find valuable players that have been overlooked. I think he has a national honor.
He does.
But I mean, it might not be commensurate with his standing and his contribution, because clearly this was a man who took the music to the world in a very special way. And he took the music in a way that is distinguished. You know, nobody could argue, I mean, about how Cat represented Jamaica. This was a standout figure. I mean, major festivals, all different kinds of places, before all different kinds of people. As one would note, the band used to, the Third World used to rehearse at Vale Royal for some of their concerts. So those are the kinds
of that's a sort of range we're talking about. That's a sort of depth that he had, not only coming from his mother, being in bands at 12 and 13, 17 starting, now this iconic band, Third World. But let me pull Dr. Dennis Howard into this conversation as well, because Dennis Howard, we are having a conversation about Stephen Cat Coore after his passing. For many people, Jimmy Cliff is somebody that they would have heard a lot about after his passing. What are the dangers of celebrating our cultural giants mainly through memorials rather than sustained recognition while they're alive, giving them their flowers then?
Yes, it's unfortunate that we are not even teaching reggae music and the greatness of our artists, because it's not only reggae music, it's mento, it's ska, it's jazz, and we have Ernie Ranglin is an outstanding jazz player apart from being a ska and reggae innovator and rocksteady innovator. So we are not taking culture seriously. No government ever since, no matter how they talk, they have not taken the culture as seriously as they should. And our culture and Jamaicanness is our superpower basically. And so we have so many of them that we take them for granted. Like a Cat Coore who is revered internationally. One of the things about Cat I must mention here is that he was a good mentor.
Something that Sean Paul spoke about in his memory.
He's a mentor. In fact, the last album that Third World did was done by Junior Gong, who was basically family. He's like an uncle.
No, used to call Cat uncle and Cat.
Uncle, yeah.
I mean, remember he was the mentor for the band, the Shepherd.
The Shepherd, yeah.
With Shia and Screen Bertram, son Richard,
and this is also then, gentlemen, along the context as well of Cat filling in that iconic concert that Bob Marley did after there had been attempts on his life here in Jamaica, replacing the guitar, replacing the guitarist, making sure that he was able to be part of that. So that's a connection then, that big connection between Bob Marley, his family, and now hearing that Junior Gong, his son, was able to be part of one of their latest projects.
Let me extend that, because the song Lord I've Got to Keep On Moving had people like Ibo and Cat playing on that record in London.
Those two members of Third World now that we no longer have with us.
Yeah, you know.
So this is therefore something that is clearly heavy, but you're also seeing then, as you've spoken about, the importance of us pulling on the legacies of individuals while they're alive, remembering them. Something you spoke about, Clyde McKenzie, though, a moment ago, was that we don't have a proper cultural honors framework. If Jamaica were to do what it is that you want them to do, design this proper cultural honors framework, what would be its core pillars, Clyde?
I think one of the first things, I mean, since we have a problem with designating a cultural figure, a cultural icon as a national hero, then perhaps what we should do is to have a cultural icon designation, which would have been equivalent to a national hero in terms of its standing. That would be perhaps one of the first things we should do. And then we need to regularize, we need to have criteria as to how we honor people with awards. I mean, and even things like how we deal with things like their transition. What do we do? How do we, I mean, what kind of system do we have for recognizing them when they're passed? I mean, for example, we could have a site where their mortal remains could be interred, or whether it be an urn or something, and that place could be an attraction, because it happens elsewhere where people of that standing are interred in a particular
So somewhere like Hero Circle, for example, where you go to now celebrate the arts?
That could have been a place. That could be the place, or find somewhere else.
All right.
Or even Emancipation Park.
Oh, so Emancipation Park would be good, especially with the kind of then revolutionary music that many of our icons would have sang. Dr. Dennis Howard, 30 seconds to you before we go. What should young musicians be remembering and learning from the legacy of Stephen Cat Coore?
His brilliance as a musician, his humility as a human being, his graciousness, and his support for young people and a support for the elders also, because he was very respectful and honored all of his peers and also the people before him. And I just want to say, to extend what Clyde said in terms of the standard, we need to start teaching our culture in our primary schools, not on Jamaica Day. It has to be part of our curriculum. I'm from KC. When you go into first form, we do the history of KC. That's why KC people stay or them stay. And we need to start teaching our young people about our culture, our greatness, the Jimmy Cliffs, the Cat Coore,
the culture
Marley,
and the history of Jamaica then clearly is something that Dr. Dennis Howard, lecturer at the Institute of Caribbean Studies, believes that we should do. Perhaps not going as far as the KC model in turning us all into purple people, but we certainly would benefit from that sort of acculturation. Clyde McKenzie, cultural commentator as well, joining us. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time and your reflections on Stephen Cat Coore. We're taking a break here inside Lead Story and coming back to you. Up next, we're talking about rebuilding with waste. Could garbage be the solution to housing here in Jamaica? We'll talk about that next inside Lead Story.
But Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
Hi, I'm Landy. Welcome to NLA Connect, the National Land Agency's customer engagement platform. NLA Connect is a simple, user-friendly platform designed to help you share your feedback, get support, and updates about land-related matters. Available 24/7, NLA Connect allows you to share suggestions, comments, and commendations, submit queries and report issues, attach files with your requests, track requests and get real-time status updates, connect with NLA client engagement officers, and provide feedback on the service received via the platform. We're making it easier for you to connect with us. You can access NLA Connect via our website, using the kiosk at any of our offices or scanning the QR code displayed at our locations. Need any help along the way? Check out our FAQs section. It has all the answers you need in one location. NLA Connect, your voice, our priority.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jodi-Ann Quarry.
Brought to you by VC's Electrical Sales. Quality products at affordable prices.
As Jamaica continues to rebuild after recent disasters, a question is being raised. Why are we throwing away materials that could help solve our housing and infrastructure challenges? The discussion has been sparked by Jamaica Environment Trust Chief Executive Officer Dr. Teresa Rodriguez Moody, who has highlighted the scale of waste, particularly at the retirement dump in St. James. Well, we now have with us inside studios to talk about how waste, garbage, rubbish could be an untapped opportunity here in Jamaica. And we're joined by Justin Saunders, Program Director at the Jamaica Environment Trust. Justin, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having us. I appreciate this opportunity to talk about waste and some responsible use.
Well, waste and responsible use is one thing, but I will tell you this much. Jamaicans are hearing rebuilding with waste, and their skin might not be as comfortable with it. Some of them might have a visceral reaction to the idea that Jamaica could be now recycling, not in ways that you put plastic bottles in bins, but we could actually be living in and using waste materials. Help us understand what the Jamaica Environment Trust sees and what you want us to see as well.
So what the Jamaica Environment Trust sees from this is really an opportunity to highlight what we consider to be perhaps not as much policy readiness as we'd like to see to tackle an issue like this. Because what you really have here is an opportunity to potentially reuse what is some waste from construction material, from housing, from natural sources. But just like our Building Act would have standards for what is safe housing and unsafe housing, unfortunately, we don't have a standard for what is safe, reusable material to use. So could this be an opportunity? It very well may be, but it's unfortunate that we don't have standards in place so far to say, can I really reuse rubble to build a foundation or to build my house? So it's a great opportunity to fortify our systems that we're working through now to manage a disaster of this scale.
You are then helping Jamaicans see how we could rebuild with what we have already, given the destruction inside Jamaica, especially on the western end of the island. There's a lot of rubble there. There's a lot of waste there. Is it the suggestion of JET and other environmentalists who jumped on board as well, that instead of getting new materials, a more eco-friendly way of doing this rebuilding might be using the materials that have already been damaged?
So the suggestion of JET is that we should already know the answer to that. Because
so you're saying that we're asking this after a hurricane is too late?
Way too late. After a hurricane, after research has been done by different environmental places, after research has been done in other countries to see how they have managed their waste after a hurricane, we should be at the point now where we have systems developed to first sort the waste that's coming through. Because if you go into any parish that has been severely affected, you'll notice that the waste isn't uniform. It's not like, Melissa just dropped all the construction waste here, and all the trees over here, and all the zinc in a nice pile over there. So as a country, we first have to get very familiar with sorting our waste. Because if we sort our waste, we can then determine how do we process and manage what can be used, how do we test the durability of what's left, and then how do we build with something and then test its durability and safety over time.
Well, hold on, Justin. Step one, we know we have that as our problem because we have dumps here in Jamaica. Retirement dump, Riverton dump are emblematic of a lack of prioritization of having this sort of waste system management. We don't have centers that allow us to separate our waste. We shove them all together and hope that there isn't a massive fire. Are you saying then that inability to sort out our waste now means that we are unable to reuse it in ways that might help Jamaica rebuild after Hurricane Melissa?
Yeah, so the reality is that that is the root of the problem. And a key thing to look at, and not to come down too hard on the system that we have, is so this hurricane alone generated approximately 4.8 million tons of waste. Now, on average for 1 year in Jamaica, we generate 1.5 million tons. So you can imagine if we have a system that's struggling to manage 1.5 million tons over a year, it would be so much harder to manage 3 times the amount over a few months. So the problem is real, but it's also systematic, and it's something that needs to be addressed in a measured way with research and with intentional action.
Well, a lot of this research, you said, has already been done. So Jamaica Environment Trust has spoken about it in the past. The National Solid Waste Management Authority has spoken about some way, shape or form that we would like to get to this place. But the UN has already looked at that in their environment program, Waste and Circular Economy, saying that these are things that we could be looking at in Jamaica, across the world. Give us some examples of places now that aren't doing what we're doing, they're doing better. What would they have been able to do, given the systems that they have already in place, that might allow for them to use the waste that they have in ways that we're not yet able to?
Okay, let me give you an example that's close to home. And so the key thing to take away from the example is not that we need to copy it, but we need to be innovative in the way that we do our own solutions for Jamaica. So Haiti, after the 2010 earthquake, they saw community groups come together and run a debris sorting site same thing we're talking about, and that not only created jobs, but it allowed for separatable waste to be reused and separated, most importantly, from hazardous waste. And a key thing that you see in countries like Japan, like Philippines, that manage their waste is that they have been proactive in inputting policies and including communities and other government organizations and non-government organizations in a holistic waste management approach. So you have to be ahead of the disaster as much as possible in order to respond to the disaster in the best way possible. And that's the main thing here. We need to get our policies strong. We need to have them in place so that we have a system to respond.
All right, we need a system to respond. Tell me about the barriers that prevent us from using these systems now, because you did speak about us not having these things in place. Are there any legal or regulatory barriers that exist that would just prevent us from picking up the rubble that we've had, especially along the western corridors of the country, and going to rebuild a house or another building?
Sure. So I'll touch on three. So the first one are legal standards relevant that we don't clearly have. So we may not have seriously considered reusing recycled material or repurposing construction material in the past. And you can't just get up and use a part of a fallen house. There has to be testing done by engineers and the proper scientists to ensure that it's safe and it can bear load and it can weather another storm. You can't rebuild your house and then next year the same thing again. And then we don't have enough environmental safeguards in place that are approved to support that kind of building. And then probably most critically, if we don't have an approved use for recyclable material, then it's very difficult for government systems to actually go forward and procure that material and give out contracts for persons to use that and to encourage persons to use it. So we need to have our standards. We need to have our safeguards, and then when we have that in place, we can procure these materials and encourage persons to use it and lower the footprint, the carbon footprint from these events.
I think that's so important that you've helped us appreciate as well that you weren't talking about food waste. You weren't talking about the garbage from our homes, of the paper bags. People heard that, you know, Justin, people heard that and went, hold on, I'm not throwing away any foil paper or anything, and then they have that build my house, and they've seen plastic bottle homes, for example, and they might have had a visceral reaction. So it's very helpful now that you've said it is debris that we're seeing from construction that can be tested and that can then move us into a next generation of homes, especially as we deal with climate vulnerabilities here in Jamaica. Help us understand as well, though, as we look at this shift that is clearly necessary, who should lead it? Central government, local authorities, or the private sector, as we see what we can use this waste to do?
So it's really a combination of all three. And again, if you look at other countries who are doing it, what we see is a very clear differentiation of roles into who should do what. Because the government does play a role in the procurement, in guiding the persons in what they can do. The public sector plays a role in assisting with providing the actual services and providing additional services to fortify what may be repurposed items. And then NGOs and the regular persons like you and I play a role in supporting the government and private sector in doing small-scale sorting, large-scale sorting when we can, and then also being responsible homeowners and doing things proactively and managing our homes in a way that we can actually withstand another Category 5 storm. And
we're not hoping ever for another Category 5 storm, but we are living within the realities of a world that is telling us that with climate conditions, with warming, with what it is that we saw last year and the year before, that we're not going to be able to avoid them for very long. Justin Saunders, Programs Manager at the Jamaica Environment, the Program Director, hold on, look at me. No, Program Director at the Jamaica Environment Trust, and Claire, the man who helped us better understand that you're not using your chocolate paper wrappers to make new houses, but instead we're looking at some of the rubble that has come out of construction that had been damaged, especially after the passage of Hurricane Melissa, and there are ways we can reuse it to effectively recycle and therefore give us new homes. Thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Thanks.
An important conversation there, and one we're glad to have been able to bring to you. Maybe your next home could be one that is made of recycled materials. But Up next, we're taking you through the big stories you need to follow from last week and now beginning this week, taking you through high-profile trials that are still unfolding. Next, inside Lead Story.
Hi, I'm Landy. Welcome to NLA Connect, the National Land Agency's customer engagement platform. NLA Connect is a simple, user-friendly platform designed to help you share your feedback, get support, and updates about land-related matters. Available 24/7, NLA Connect allows you to share suggestions, comments, and commendations, submit queries and report issues, attach files with your requests, track requests and get real-time status updates, connect with NLA client engagement officers, and provide feedback on the service received by the platform. We're making it easier for you to connect with us. You can access NLA Connect via our website, using the kiosk at any of our offices, or scanning the QR code displayed at our locations. Need any help along the way? Check out our FAQs section. It has all the answers you need in one location. NLA Connect, your voice, our priority.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is...
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVMTV.
So much more than entertainment.
We're taking you through a look at the week in court, with several high-profile trials that are unfolding simultaneously, taking up all the attention and helping us make sure that you understand what's going on. Here is an overview. First, we're talking about the Jolyn Silvera murder trial. That's a big one that's going on in the country right now. Another one, the corruption case involving former Education Minister Rule Reid and Professor Fritz Pinnock, and the Noel Maitland case. Now, these are all three big trials that have taken up national attention, and they have since 2025 at least, some of them going far before that. But this is certainly something that we thought would be important for you as we watch how these matters unfold. In one particular case that had an explosive event happen today, the Noel Maitland trial, the accused had given an unsworn statement from the dock last week. Now, an unsworn statement is permitted in Jamaican law, but it's not evidence and cannot be tested on the cross-examination. It's just the person who is before the court saying something, and they're not taking an oath to say what they're saying is true or not, but they are in fact wanting to make a statement to the court. Now, the value lies in what the judge or the jury decides to make of it, and nothing more. Now, we'll talk about these important cases, and we'll start off with the Noel Maitland case. First off, with Jason Cross, staff reporter at the Jamaica Observer. Jason Cross, thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story.
Good evening, no problem.
Jason, I'm glad to have you here with us. Jamaicans are watching these matters, they're watching these cases, and they're trying to understand just what exactly they mean and where they are. Let's talk about the big case of the day, the Noel Maitland murder trial. Give us some background for those Jamaicans who might not have been watching what's been going on there in the courts.
Okay, so it's crunch time now in the Noel Maitland murder case. That's happening in the Home Circuit Court in downtown Kingston. As you mentioned earlier, this is a very high-profile case. So Noel Maitland is a police constable who is being tried for murder and preventing the lawful burial of a corpse. That is in relation to the July 12, 2022 disappearance of his 24-year-old girlfriend, Donnelly Donaldson, who was last seen at his Chelsea Manor apartment in New Kingston. Maitland was said to have, during the evidence, it came out that Maitland picked her up from her house the day before and brought her to his apartment where they participated in certain activities and so on. And then the following day, they were purported to have had an argument over the mother of Maitland's child. He claimed that she left the apartment and he didn't know where she went after that.
Jason Cross, let me pause there for a second because we have pictures playing on screen of Donnelly Donaldson, the girlfriend that is now missing, and the case hinges, it seems, on what happened with her. But is this case so public and so visible, not only because of this missing young woman, but because she was also a social media influencer and had persons coming out indicating that they wanted to see some resolution to this matter?
Yes, that was a major factor.
And that's important for Jamaicans to understand. Yes.
Her family, social media, everybody was on it from day one, so that played a major role.
So the court
receiving the prominence that it has.
And that prominence is certainly something that allows us to continue then to watch this case in ways that we don't necessarily follow other cases here in the country. So Constable Maitland is now before the courts. What is it that has been going on for the last maybe 2 weeks that Jamaicans need to be paying attention to, and what happened today?
All right, let me just talk about today, right? So the prosecution team, led by Director of Public Prosecution, Claudette Thompson, they delivered their closing arguments in the case today. So one of the things that the prosecution raised was the question of why Mr. Maitland was so busy trying to get rid of a couch from his apartment during the period or a day after Donnelly was reported missing or went missing. So basically, she said that while Donnelly's mother, Miss Sophia, was upset and worried about her daughter being missing, Maitland was at a car wash getting his settee detailed. So that was one of the major points that came out today. Tomorrow, the defense will deliver their closing arguments in the case. We were told that by Thursday the case should wrap up, so the jury should come back with a verdict at some point on Thursday afternoon thereabout.
You're in courts often, Jason. You are seeing what's going on. You're seeing how justice is unfolding in the court system. Do you think Jamaicans understand what it means to have a trial this long, to have all the various parts come together and now have us wait for justice to be served, whether it is that the court makes a determination in either of these cases as innocent or guilty?
Well, on the point of whether they understand it or not, I don't believe they do, and my reason for that is because when you check out the comments on social media and the various stories are published, people are just saying, let's get this case over with, basically saying that guilt is there until it is proven. So, you understand that they don't really get the picture. They don't get the full picture of how the justice system works and all that.
I think that's so important that you've highlighted that, because a justice system that has persons who are watching but not understanding, appreciating as you do inside the courts what takes place, appreciating as I do as an attorney as well as to what takes place, is a justice system that isn't going to be able to serve the people who it is meant to very, very well. I know that you're only speaking to us about the Maitland case today as we go through some of the big things that are going on in courts as well. But is there any other case you think the country should be watching, keeping its eyes on for the next week?
Well, most definitely the Jodi-Ann Silvera case, the Klansman trial, but those will be returning to court in February, I believe. Klansman for sure will be back in court in February. And I believe the Jodi-Ann Silvera case as well. There is another case that I understand was supposed to get off the ground today, involving 6 policemen who were alleged to have murdered a young man. I don't remember the name of the young man, but I can check that and have you update the nation on that.
I think that's so important that you're willing to do so and help us contribute to a population that better appreciates what's going on in the courts, as you have helped us do today in the Noel Maitland trial, waiting now after the prosecution has closed its case today for the defense to close its case, and now helping us figure out as well what are the other cases that Jamaicans should be watching. Jason Cross, thanks so much for joining us tonight inside Lead Story.
You're welcome.
Our absolute pleasure. That's Jason Cross, staff reporter there at the Jamaica Observer, spending time talking to us about what's going on in the country tonight as we're taking you through the courts for those big cases. The Jodi-Ann Silvera case is one that you heard will be coming up and continuing to be in the news. And then a long-standing case that we've been watching. Former Education Minister Rule Reid and former head of the Caribbean Maritime University, Professor Fritz Pinnock, are still before the courts, with new updates in those trials expected to come this week as well. That's it for this evening's edition of Lead Story. Tonight's stories share a common thread. A man who built a musical legacy over a lifetime, a country still rebuilding, still struggling to use what it already has, and a justice system under constant public scrutiny. The question for Jamaica is not whether we have talent, resources, or laws. We do. The question is whether we have the discipline to honor, manage, and apply them